Right. Fire.
Oh, good evening and welcome to a very special interview show of the Pro. Today it's my pleasure to have Dr. N.C. Asthana sir on our show. Dr. N.C. Asthana sir has served as the Director General of Kerala Police and also as the Additional Director General of Border Security Force and Central Reserve Security Force. Thank you very much, sir, for agreeing to this interview and welcome to the Pro.
Welcome.
Okay, sir. So of late, the police in India have come in a lot in for a lot of criticism. Like while a lot of criticism could be subjective, the honorable courts have come down heavily on the police. So how far do you think that the criticism of the police is justified or it's correct?
There is every reason to believe that the popular perception regarding the police is largely correct.
Yeah,
You see, one may be a very young man, he might not have had sufficient interaction with the police. You
yeah,
take, say, 100,000 men of the age of 40 who are likely to have had sufficient interaction with the police and ask them what is their opinion of the police. Has there been any occasion in their life when the police helped them either without any sifarish or without any bribe? The answer mostly would be in the negative.
yeah,
As far as the courts are concerned, they have passed something very scathing judgments on the
yeah,
functioning of the police. As far as police encounters are concerned, some of the leading judgments they include the famous division bench judgment in the case of Prakash Kadam versus the
that's
state of Maharashtra. And as far as the quality of investigation goes, because the quality of investigation is extremely poor, you must have read of late there has been a spate of rapes, very gruesome rapes in UP.
yeah,
Now, if you take the data, official data furnished by the National Crime Records Bureau in their latest
yeah,
publication, Crime in India 2018, the conviction rate for rapes is 27.2% all India, with very minor variation amongst the states. In fact, this shows that the judiciary is consistent, whereas the police is also consistent in their inefficiency. I
yeah,
mean, nearly only one fourth of the arrested rapists are convicted, three-fourths get away. This means they have a reason to believe that there is a very good chance, 75% chance of getting away with the crime. And this, in part, contributes to the increase in the number of crimes. There is a famous judgment, I think that's 2014, if my memory serves me right, that's called Kishan Bhai versus State of Gujarat. In this judgment, the Supreme Court has very categorically held that in both eventualities, the accused gets away because the investigation has been poor, or an innocent person has been unfairly implicated in some crime. The investigating officer in both eventualities must be punished. However, the official position regarding this is extremely dismal. One can ask in RTI from any state, and hardly anybody has been punished in compliance of the judgment in Kishan Bhai versus the state of Gujarat. So, there is reason to believe that the functioning of the police is not what was expected by the citizens of this country.
yeah. Okay. So do you think that the police reforms could be the panacea for the evils stalking the police? If yes, how? If not, then why?
Police reform actually has become more of a buzzword. You see, the Indians, by their very nature, have a habit of latching on to some sort of single shot solution.
Solution,
Uh,
yeah.
uh, for everything, we look for a simplistic thing.
Yeah,
For example, for corona, we believe that if you take Giloy and Tulsi and Ashwagandha, then you would be saved because they do not want to go through the complicated procedure of the conservative allopathic treatment.
yeah,
Similarly, we have historically we have had a belief that there would be a Taranhar. There would be a Taranar, one man or one woman who would solve all your problems. How he does, that's his problem. Even in political agitations, you must have heard, फलाने फलाने तुम संघर्ष करो हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं.
हम तुम्हारे
संघर्ष
साथ
करना तुम्हारी प्रॉब्लम है. You do
yeah,
whichever way you want to do. हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं. So the same phenomenon applies to police reforms also because people are sick with the functioning of the police.
police, yeah,
the satisfaction level of the Janata with respect to the police is extremely poor. I am more than 60 years old and I have yet to find any person amongst the Janata who would say कि हाँ I am very happy with the police helped me on such and such occasion, बड़ी problem थी, उन्होंने एकदम झटके में solve कर दी. I have yet to find any man of this type.
It
That's
only happens with the relatives of the politicians.
no, as I said, you have to have either sifarish, whether it is coming through political circle or you may be coming from the bureaucratic circle, anywhere, some sort of sifarish or plain and simple paisa. Then only the wheels of the police, or for that matter, any government department. I mean, there is no need for me to be unduly harsh with the police. Every other government department works this way only. So, police reforms, I will discuss them in detail, but it only drives the point home that people want a simple solution. Okay, okay, अरे यही रिफॉर्म करने को रह गया था, इसको कर दीजिए, तुरंत प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो जाएगी. It does not happen that way, because have the citizens been obliged to suffer since 1898 when the CRPC was first introduced, merely because some miraculous reforms were not introduced, merely because this brain wave could not come, and hence the people have been obliged to suffer? No, it does not happen. There is no human, social, political, economic problem in the world which has been waiting only for a wonder idea. It does not happen.
Okay. Hello. Yeah.
Next.
Okay. So, yeah. What exactly was envisaged in the Prakash Singh judgment, and what exactly are the problems with it?
I'll explain. If you care to read the judgment in the Prakash Singh and subsequent interim judgments on that, you see, once the judgment has been passed, obviously I cannot criticize it without incurring the risk of contempt of court. So I am not going to criticize the judgment, but the fact remains that certain essential features were not presented properly before the court. For example, they presented before the court that most of the ills of the police, most of the occasions when the police fails to deliver, they arise because police officers keep on getting transferred quickly.
Yeah.
At times it is true. At times even I have been transferred 4 times in a year. Yes. At times people do get transferred quickly, but it is utterly simplistic. It is utterly childish to believe that the police department fails to deliver only because people are getting transferred quickly. So because they argued this way, the Supreme Court made a provision that for all the field officers, actually most people have not read the judgment carefully.
Yeah.
If you read the judgment carefully, generally people think that it is only for the DGP that they provided a tenure of 2 years. Actually,
2 years.
they have provided for a tenure of 2 years for all the field officers.
Even for SHO.
From SHO upwards for all the field officers.
Yeah.
So, this was the underlying spirit behind the judgment, that if they are given security of tenure, probably is my insertion, probably they would deliver better. Unfortunately, even in those states where the judgment has been implemented, the delivery by the police remains as poor as ever. So the proof of the pudding lies in eating it. All states have not implemented it, as you must be aware. Some states have been resisting it, but those states, including my own cadre, where it has been implemented, even a Kerala Police Act has been introduced in compliance of the judgment in 2011. I happen to be the author of that Kerala Police Act. But as far as the ground level, the cutting edge level delivery is concerned, the perception of the police remains more or less the same. Now, you see, another misconception which these people created was that left to itself, the police would be, holier than thou. I mean, they are the paragons of virtues, and it is only because the politicians keep on meddling in their affairs that they do not follow the law which is prescribed for them. With all due respect, I beg to differ, it is not so. Next.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is the fundamental problem with the suggested police reforms?
As I said, besides the security of tenure, they have suggested other things also like State Security Commission and Police
Yeah.
Establishment Board and such thing.
Yeah.
Everything boils down in the end to the fact that these people want all the powers to be concentrated in the hands of the officers. That the Commissioner of Police of Delhi should be able to post SHOs where he wants or
Yeah.
DGPs where he wants. In the states where DGP system is there, DGP should be able to transfer and post people wherever he wants. In theory, in theory it looks fine, but in practice there are genuine problems. You see, having spent 34 years in the IPS and 4 years before that in other class 1 services of the government of India, I have every reason to believe that the politicians have been wrongly projected in a bad light by all such vested interests. I will explain why I am calling them vested interests.
That's right.
You see, there is no reason to believe that the people who have cleared the civil services examination, or for that matter, who have cleared the examinations of the
State PSC,
state PSCs,
PSCs. Yeah.
they they are devoid of any defects in their personalities, that they are paragons of virtue. उनसे भले आदमी हो ही नहीं सकते. And the neta is inherently bad. I will put it this way. There is no reason to believe that the officers are like innocent like the little Red Riding Hood and the neta is the big bad wily wolf. No, the neta also comes from the same societal pool. वहीं से वो भी आ रहा है. He
Yeah.
goes to the same educational institutions.
Yeah.
He shares and inherits the same socio-cultural values which you inherit. The mere fact that you mugged for a year and then wrote an examination for 3 hours, how does that add to your inherent virtues? Or for that matter, you underwent a training for 2 years or 1 year,
2 years.
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it cannot change whatever you have inherited. I mean, on what grounds, on what basis do you criticize that the politician is inherently bad, whereas the officers, the government officers are inherently good? There
Good.
is no good logical reason to subscribe to such an opinion. Uh, I mean, it's an extremely bad elitist view. Merely because you happen to pass an examination which he either didn't appear in or maybe could not pass,
Yeah.
does not mean anything.
Yeah.
I mean, they have been thrown by the same environment, by the same ambience. They share
Yeah.
the same value. And on the contrary, my personal experience has been that the politician has much more compassion, much more common sense, and a greater ability to think out of the box
Box.
than
Yeah.
any government servant. You see, government servants, they refuse to apply their mind. They all, you ask anything to be done by a government servant, his first natural reaction would be look for precedent. साहब
Yeah.
पहले कभी ऐसा हुआ है कि नहीं हुआ, पहले हुआ है तो जो हुआ है उसी पे वैसा ही कर दो,
Based
दिमाग
on
नहीं
that.
लगाना
Yeah.
है उसमें.
Yeah.
In fact, you see, the politician, because it does not come with a baggage, the baggage is like this. Say, for example, somebody junior to you might be brilliant. Why not?
Why not?
Then
Of course.
senior officer develop a complex with respect to him. Many senior officers develop a complex and either start screwing up his ACR or start harassing him in some other way simply because they develop a complex. A politician does not have any such complex with respect to the officer.
Yeah.
And finally, there is a simple fact: the politician is directly accountable to the Janta.
Agenda.
If
Yeah.
he does not deliver, you can theoretically boot him out after 5 years.
Yeah.
Whereas a government servant who is either bad or arrogant or lazy or
Will
whatever,
will
you
stay
are
for like.
obliged to suffer him till he retires.
Yeah.
So there is no reason to believe what these people, the ulterior motive of all such reform walas is that they want all the power concentrated in their hands without the corresponding accountability. An officer doesn't have any accountability. You can initiate a departmental proceeding against him. Theoretically, you can even dismiss him. But the process is extremely difficult. Whereas for a politician, it's just a matter, it's a tenure of 5 years. After 5 years, you can vote him out. You don't have to initiate a departmental proceeding, issue him a charge sheet, get his reply, and then form a committee to examine it, and so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
which he is free to challenge in first in the CAT, second in the High Court, and third in the Supreme Court. I
Supreme
mean,
Court.
by the time you finally get through him, he would anyway be nearing his retirement.
Yeah.
So I strongly believe that the representatives of the people should have the ultimate power in their hands. It is only fair in a democratic system. The
Yeah.
Janta elects representatives to give expression to their desires, their voice, and they must necessarily have ascendancy over the government officers. I mean, police is only a part of the entire government system.
Entire system. Yeah.
So there is no, I mean, what harm accrues? There, as I said, even in those places where security of tenure has been guaranteed, uh, are they delivering what was expected of them to deliver? No. Why
No.
blame the home minister of the state, or why blame the chief minister of the state? What wrong
Stay.
the poor
Yeah.
man has done? In
Yeah.
fact, in fact, there have been 10,000 occasions when I have found them to be much more reasonable. I mean, they can be approached. You can tell them, कि sir, aisa hai, and people do it if they understand
Yeah.
it. I have found occasions when a chief minister could understand something in 20 seconds flat, which officers could not understand even in 20 days. I can give you even a historical example of it, although it is not
Yes,
connected
sir.
with police reforms, but because you are a young
Yes,
man,
sir.
so you would
Yes, sir.
be benefited by this historical example. You must have heard of
Yes, sir.
Joseph
Sure.
Stalin,
Sure.
of course.
Yes, sir.
Who hasn't heard of
Of
Joseph
course. Yes, sir.
Stalin? Okay, fine. Now I will take you the field of nuclear physics. Nuclear
Okay.
fission, the phenomenon of nuclear fission was discovered in 1939 by Otto Hahn and Lise Meitner. Lise Meitner was a
Okay.
woman, Otto Hahn, a German scientist. They
Okay.
discovered the phenomenon of nuclear fission. Nuclear fission is a, I mean, simple physical phenomenon. By that time, nobody had an idea that it would be used for making the nuclear bomb. It
Bomb. Yeah.
was it was only in 1942 December that Enrico Fermi made the first nuclear reactor out of it in University of Chicago, which is known as the Chicago Pile. It was an experimental reactor, produced very little power, but it gave them a hint that the phenomenon of nuclear fission could be used for producing power. And if it could be used for producing power, it could also be used for
Oh.
producing explosive power. That is for destructive purposes. As you must be aware, when they realized this, and as the Second World War progressed, in the US, the largest project of human history called the Manhattan Project, it was launched, and more than 112,000 people were employed in it, including a galaxy of Nobel laureates in it, to develop the nuclear bomb. Now, that is what was happening in the USA. Come to Soviet Union. Soviet Union, there were two physicists by the name Igor Kurchatov and Viktor Falerov.
Okay.
These gentlemen were having long beards, I mean, very old fashioned nuclear physicists.
Okay.
These guys went to Joseph Stalin, these two gentlemen, and told him that, sir, nuclear fission was discovered in 1939. There was a flurry of publications on nuclear fission throughout the world. I mean, all over the world, people started working on it and started publishing papers.
Yeah.
But now suddenly, papers have stopped being published. This means that the matter has gone military.
Yeah.
Now they are trying to develop a bomb.
Bomb.
Apparently, this is
Yeah.
something so complex, but it has been recorded by Khrushchev in his autobiography. Khrushchev remembers that
Okay.
Stalin understood it instantly.
Yeah.
Within a microsecond, he understood, yes,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
matter has gone military. Now, research in nuclear physics is being used to develop a nuclear bomb, and hence we must also do it. He instantly, I mean, Stalin was not, unlike Lenin, he was not a very well educated man. I mean, certainly not in comparison to Lenin,
Lenin.
but
Yeah.
by his sheer common sense, he understood it in an instant and asked this Igor Kurchatov and Valery Felerov to go to Moscow University and other famous universities of Soviet Union, pick up whoever they wanted as a bright boy in nuclear physics, take him along. In fact, some of those boys have recorded in their memoirs that these two gentlemen came to the universities with their beards and wearing the hero of the Soviet Union medal on them. People have wondered, कौन है यार hero of the Soviet Union कौन लगाया हुआ है? They merely talk to some students, whoever they thought कि अच्छा लड़का है, ठीक है, चलो बेटा, कोई no
Let's go.
questions asked,
Yeah.
चलो काम करना है.
Let's go. Yeah.
Now, had there been a bureaucrat, had there been an officer in place of Stalin, he would have raised 100 queries and would have never understood it. क्यों
Yeah.
आए हो, कैसे आए हो, वहां का क्या है, ये है, मतलब 1000 क्वेरी लगाते हो, काम कभी ना समझते.
Yeah.
This is what the common sense of they brought a problem of nuclear physics before a man who was a professional politician and he understood it in a microsecond. So
Yeah.
the same thing applies to any other context. A politician has much broader vision. He doesn't have any baggage.
Yeah.
He has more compassion. In fact, there have been innumerable occasions in bureaucracy that if a junior officer goes with a problem before somebody senior, and people are so heartless. बहुत प्रॉब्लम है तो नौकरी छोड़ दो. I mean,
Yeah.
और कुछ
Yeah.
नहीं. बहुत प्रॉब्लम है तो फूट जाओ.
Yeah.
That's the way people react. No, Neta would not react it this way. Take it
Yeah.
from me, cutting
No.
across party lines, they would not react it this way.
Not again. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So I maintain from all this that the superiority of the decision-making powers must remain with the politician. Next.
Okay. What, in your views, is the prognosis for the police?
Frankly speaking, the prognosis is poor.
Okay.
I will explain it in several ways.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I will explain it. There are several reasons. You see, you are putting up with an Indian Penal Code which was made in 1861. You are
Yeah.
putting up with a Criminal Procedure Code which is started in 1898. Of course, we amended it in 1973. And an Evidence Act which was there in 1872. By and large, the same thing continues.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that in all these years, have we not produced sufficiently intelligent people that we write a law of our own? This Indian Penal Code was written by 4 or 5 Scottish gentlemen, J.J. MacLeod, Macpherson.
Yeah.
Macaulay is unnecessarily blamed for it. Macaulay's fingers were in every pie, but J.J. MacLeod and Macpherson, these gentlemen wrote it sitting way back in England. It was written, in fact, in 1835 itself, it was kept there. But for the mutiny, the British were not in a hurry to introduce it. Because the mutiny came in 1857, so they hurriedly introduced it in 1861. Why could we not write our own penal code, criminal procedure code, and things like that? Simply because the vested interests of a lot of people are involved in it. A whole battery of men in black coats is surviving on it.
In it. Yeah.
So, if a new system is introduced, probably which would allow for faster justice at a lower cost,
Lower cost.
probably
Exactly.
it would not suit them.
Suit
In
them,
any
of course.
case, I refuse to believe, having been the author of the Kerala Police Act, I refuse to believe that a new criminal justice code could not be written for India by the Indians. Why didn't we
Yeah.
do
Of
it?
course. Of course, we can.
Because we have had a vested interest in continuing
Interested.
the old thing. So, as long as this old thing continues, I mean, you see, the discretionary powers given to the police are so vast that they are in any case likely to be abused. In fact, as a rule of thumb, you can maintain that wherever discretionary powers are given, they shall be abused. I mean, India is the only country where we have a system of preventive arrest. अभी कुछ किया नहीं है, लेकिन तुम कुछ कर सकते हो, इसलिए हम तुमको पकड़ लेंगे.
Arrest कर लिया. Yeah.
All such things we have allowed to continue because a lot of people stand to benefit by it. And to be honest, the people themselves are partly responsible for it.
Yeah.
You see, everybody starts shouting कि साहब corruption है, ये है, वो है. But when it suits, they have double standards. When it suits them, if they are in a position to bribe the sub inspector or even the head constable or even the beat constable, they would happily bribe it and get their thing done. But
That,
if their
of course,
opponent does the same thing, then they say ki corruption hai.
corruption. Exactly. Yeah.
In fact, the thing is so deep rooted that every stupid aspirant for the civil services knows कि एक बार select भी हो गए उसके बाद when it comes for the police verification you have to satisfy and propitiate the special branch head constable who comes for inquiry, who has to write your police verification report कि
Even
ये
even for the passport thing, like a
अरे
person comes.
इट्स ए होल रैकेट. अगर
Whole
आपने
racket,
नहीं
yeah.
दिया तो लिख देंगे कि आप तो डाउटफुल कैरेक्टर के आदमी हो एंड नोबडी नोज व्हाट इज डाउटफुल कैरेक्टर.
Yeah.
तो आपका कहीं स्कूटर भी लड़ गया है तो दैट आल्सो बिकम्स ए केस अगेंस्ट यू कि साहब इनके ऊपर तो एक केस है. तो देयर इज नो एंड टू द एक्सटेंट टू विच पावर्स, डिस्क्रिशनरी पावर्स कैन बी अब्यूज्ड. So, if at all police have to be redeemed, if there has to be any redemption, I mean, there has to be a massive overhaul of the system. And why I am sounding pessimistic? Because I do not see it feasible that people themselves are willing for a massive overhaul. After all, matlab, we are 137 crore at the moment, and since 1947, we must have been, say, 500 crores. किसी ने कोई ने बोला कि इसको बदलो यार.
Of course, yes, sir.
Or there are simple ways. You don't have to agitate for it. After all, we elect our representatives. हम अपने इलेक्टेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव से हमने क्यों नहीं बोला यार कि 500 में 400 आदमी, 542 में 400 आदमी मिलके बोले कि बदलिए इसको. Provide for some system which can deliver faster justice at a lower cost.
Yeah.
I mean, paying to the advocate is prohibitive. I mean, most people cannot afford, and that's why most people do not get justice.
Yeah.
The quality of justice you get is almost directly proportional to the amount you can spend on the advocate.
Amount of money you can spend. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. So people themselves are to be blamed for the state of affairs because they have never really tried the legitimate ways of their representatives to evolve a better system. After all, you see, the CRPC was amended only a few years back to provide for this plea bargaining. I mean, plea bargaining has been in the US since ages.
Yeah.
Did we wake up to it only after so many years? Were people not aware of it, say, 50 years ago? I mean, whatever changes which are brought here are brought in a sporadic fashion. कभी अचानक किसी को ब्रेन वेव आ गया तो हो गया. I mean, a nation of our size should not be behaving in such an erratic manner. If we have a genuine desire to do it, let us do it systematically. What prevents us? We have all the powers.
Yeah.
I think that should be enough.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your very valuable response, and thank you very much, sir, for joining.
Okay. I am pleased to encourage a young man.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a pleasure to interview a former DGP. Thank you very much, sir.
God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.